Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel and Adam for another episode of the Horror Express. We've been on a big long break, and we're back, and we're going to be doing a late night movie discussion. So this is one that happens. The technical definition of late night movie discussion is after 11 p.m. when Brendan gets tired. That is the official dividing line, and so this is a late night movie discussion, which means we might meander, we might lose our trains of thought. And we're talking about the film Black Sabbath, a 1963 movie by Mario Bava. It's a horror anthology. This is where the band Black Sabbath got their name from. It's also apparently it inspired the structure of Pulp Fiction as well. And it's it's an interesting horror anthology. The first installment is sort of like a modern human evil story. And the second one is a kind of vampire. I think it's called a Vordalak or a Wardalak or something like that. A vampire that goes after the blood of its loved ones. And the third is about a vengeful ghost of a spiritualist. And we're going to get into each one individually. But before we do, what are you guys' thoughts on this movie? What did you guys think about it?
I really enjoyed this. I'd never actually seen this before. It was a pleasant surprise. There's, like you say, the three movies are all very different in tone, so you get a good variety right off. It keeps it fresh, and I am babbling. I am very tired.
That's okay. It's a late night. That's why I prefaced this with it's a late night movie discussion, because I knew this would be happening. So Joel, why don't you pick up where Adam trailed off?
Where I am. I don't know that I got anywhere for him to pick up. He can take over.
Yes, it's fine. You actually make a good point. The fact that all the stories are really different. Like, I hadn't really thought about it, but they really are. Like,
yeah,
they're like three different episodes of Twilight Zone or something like that. They really are very distinct from each other.
They're very stylistically different, like not just different genres, just the way they're shot is different, the colors. Like the last one, for example, the colors get really garish and almost like comic booky. Like she's wearing, like the first shot, there's the green light coming in. She's wearing this purple dress, and it's just like, there's so many great stylistic choices between these.
The time settings are all different too, right? Like the time periods.
Yes.
And that's another good observation. You're all like, oh, I'm loopy, and then here you are just like zinging them out. Like visually, this movie's really arresting. It's got a really bold use of color. There's a lot of really cool shots that like kind of took me off guard. Like whenever like right smack in the middle of the movie, where Boris Karloff as the whatever kind of vampire he is like writing with his grandson, with the moon in the background. He looks insane, and it's got this amazing effect because, and they reveal this over the credits. The horse is fake, and he's like real, and he's riding like he's really into it, and like there's this amazing contrast to the elements where he's really animated, and like the horse is really. It's uncanny looking, and it really sticks in your mind, this nightmarish image. And then later on, they kind of deflate it because over the credits, they kind of zoom out, and it's just him with a fake horse.
I wanted to get to that later, but we can get to that now. This movie is prefaced with a sort of introduction by Boris Karloff, where he looks more like Boris Karloff. He's got a suit, and his hair is normal. And then it's ended with him sort of still in the garb of the character that he plays in the middle installment. And there's something very playful and very, very 1950s, 1960s horror of that, just that I'd say Halloween appropriate tone of, this is horror, but we're kind of exaggerating our mannerisms here. And there's a little edge of humor to what I'm doing. And, oh, look, it's all fake in the end. And, I feel like it's almost like an event, the way that the movie is presented, and then the way it ends with that thing with the and also I don't know if that's the actual effect they were using in the movie when they're on the horses. I just think that they thought that was funny to have the to do the thing with the guys going around in a circle around the camera.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and then they're playing like the silly music in the background as well when they do that. But I feel like
they really leave you with a smile with that one.
Yeah.
but I think that's the point. I think that's the point. It's like, okay, now you can decompress, like go home and think about me, but you don't have to be afraid. It was just a movie type,
Yeah, it's a fun ending. It works. It's
So the first movie is The Telephone, or Joel, if you want to do the Italian title.
I'm not gonna do an insulting Italian accent. I have Italian family; they would kill me, and I'm not exaggerating that. But it's called Il Telefono, I think. We should probably mention this movie. It's in Italian. There's no. I don't think there's any English at all, and I honestly stopped noticing after a while. Like it's just that like. You just kind of fall into this movie's world, and I don't know. It wasn't a material consideration for the whole thing. So Il Telefono is an interesting way to start this one. Again, I was caught off guard with it. It's very modern, and it's almost ridiculous at first.
I'm not sure it really hangs together, like the details of the plot. There were lots of things I was like, does that fit with it? I need to watch it one more time to hammer it down, but I didn't really care. It's great. It's really enjoyable.
It's got a nice twist. It's got a nice twist, and you probably don't want to think too long on the twist. No. But it's a nice twist. That was sort of my attitude to it.
It works. It's effective despite being I don't know.
Well, and maybe it's just a different era of horror because I was watching this with my girlfriend, and we were both kind of watching it and sort of baffled by what was going on, because just this lady alone in her house at during the evening, she gets a phone call, and this dude like makes no bones. It's just this guy who's like, I can see you, I'm going to kill you, and it's just like really really like raw. Yeah. And she has the weirdest reaction where she just keeps listening. And then eventually just kind of like gently places down the receiver and then just does something else. And it's like, are you worried about this? She doesn't call the cops. She doesn't freak out. And like this pattern repeats like five times.
I think the initial call she might have thought was probably like a prank call or something like that. And so that's why it's like she wasn't taking it seriously yet. But then she gets progressively more afraid as it goes on, right?
Yeah, eventually she calls her buddy to come in, her lady buddy. And I maybe coming from a modern audience, I wasn't really feeling the sapphic vibes you guys were talking about pre-broadcast. But reconsidering it a little bit, they do get pretty naked around each other.
Well,
so
the big giveaway for me is that when they go in the bedroom to sleep, the camera pans to the window and then it plays the music, and that's like the music they play when people are having sex. Do you know what I mean? Like the where they're elapsing time, they're not actually showing the sex scene in the old movies. But I still wasn't sure because I was like, well, it's an old movie, and like maybe but yeah, they're definitely.
Is that normal cutaways music, or is that like
not that, but like music? Just like maybe I'm over analyzing it. Do you know what I mean? Like that was sort of my thinking, but it kept coming back to my mind. We're like, no, I think there's supposed to be a couple of some kind or something.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. This guy is supposed. I mean, if you try and piece the story together, this guy who's come back for vengeance, it's like they were having an affair behind his back, and that led to whatever violence happened that got him put away. I feel like that's the implied background story here. So I feel like it's not like it is a crucial thing to this story, not kind of just hey, there's some lesbianism in here.
It would also explain why he kills Mary the way he does, because he's got some anger towards her, because it didn't seem like he was just doing it because she was in the way. It seemed like there was something going on.
We should mention there are two cuts of this movie too. There is the original Italian cut, and the American cut removes anything that hints at lesbianism.
But
so if you watch the American cut, we saw the Italian.
We saw the Kino Cult version, right? Which is I think the Kino Classics movies, right? Like is that?
Yeah, the two versions, because I didn't see it twice, but I tried to watch it twice because I got it on Amazon, and I also got it on we said it was Kino was the other one. I think it was
Kino.
I
Yeah.
think they were the same. I think that was the same cut because it was like pretty similar.
Also, I noticed.
I wonder if you did watch a different one. Then that'd be interesting.
I noticed that the Kino one, the second time I watched it, there were no ads as well, which was interesting. And I don't know if that was just because they turned the ads off when I happened to watch it a second time, or if they're like, oh, this person has seen this before, they don't need to see the ads this time. But I thought that was nice. It was nice seeing it without the ads. But yeah, the Kino one looked great. I tried watching one on YouTube, but that one didn't have any subtitles and it was all in Italian, and it was also more grainy looking. So, I turned it off and just went back to the Kino. But yeah, I thought this was a great story. I like that they opened with a non-supernatural one, because then I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know, and so
this one too, you weren't always sure if it was or not. I mean, there were elements of it that kind of gave you a feeling there might be something supernatural going on early on, I thought.
It turns out like it was just her friend, like basically crank calling her to get back into her good graces. I also love that she clearly only thought the first half of the plan through, because the plan was, she's going to see this headline that her revenge-driven boyfriend has escaped and is on the loose. Therefore, I will call her and pretend to be that boyfriend, and then she'll invite me over because she's scared of him, and then we'll make up.
Yeah.
And never did it in her mind that the revenge-driven boyfriend might show up at her house to do the thing she was threatening, which
I know.
kill them both. I do like that she stabs him, though. That was great.
Well, there's kind of three twists in the movie, right? There's the twist of the woman being the one making the phone call. There's the twist of her giving the knife, and then the knife actually being used, and there's and then there's the twist of the boyfriend actually does show up, and it's a real threat. He just wasn't.
It was a real threat.
The real boyfriend just was smart enough to not call her, so that she didn't know he was going to come, and it's just, so it was, that kind of a thing. But I don't know, Adam, actually you had mentioned you weren't sure if certain things lined up. So were there plot holes in this one that you thought were notable, or just generally a sense that you had that it was
I'm trying to remember the specifics now, but I mean, for one thing too, I'm not sure on the how she was being watched thing worked out. It's like, where was this woman was the one making the calls, but where was she calling from that she was watching her? It's like, we see the guy out looking through the window at one point, but it's like, I don't understand how any of that fits together. But
I don't know about that, because I was wondering, well, like, the guy is the one who slips the piece of paper through the door, right? So that's obviously not supposed to be the woman doing that. But then I was like, well, maybe they were playing like cinematic, like, license a little bit, where it's like they're showing it as the guy because that's who she thinks it is, but it's really the woman type. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean, to an extent, with this is kind of a early Giallo type movie, and it's like, none of those are pretty famous for not operating entirely on a logical level anyway. So it's like, I guess it really doesn't matter if it all fits together.
But I don't know. I enjoyed this one. It was a nice entry into the anthology, and I found it. It was one of those kinds of movies where it's all inside the same room, and it's basically a woman on a telephone, but it was still managed to keep me engaged and entertained. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on this one?
I would say this one kind of won me over. At first, it was pure comedy. It's sort of baffling at the beginning, and then once the characters start getting into it, like, I don't know, I sort of 180'd on it. I was like, I actually kind of care what happens to these ladies.
But one thing too, your point about why doesn't she call the cops and that kind of thing. It apparently, like, she is supposed to be a prostitute too, so it could be that could play into it if she's basically someone who might not want to call the cops. That's always,
she might have a lot of reasons for not having the cops there.
Yeah, so I'm saying that was actually what was running through my head when I was watching the movie and thinking about that.
And the next movie was called what? The Wardalac? Was that the name of it?
I think Wardalac. Yeah.
Yeah, it had a very strange and I would have otherwise said memorable name, except none of us can remember it. But it's but like the feel of that name sticks in your head really really strongly. It's if it was just it's the vampire, we wouldn't give a shit. But no, it's not like a vampire. It's something that's similar to a vampire, but way more horrible and way more specific. And it's just neat. God damn it, it's really neat. I will say, I want to come out swinging with this one. I fucking loved the Vordelak. Mm-hmm. This one completely sold me on the movie. Oh man. Well, I loved it so much.
I think it's the longest entry too, right? Isn't this one the longest one?
Yeah, this is one of the meatier ones.
Yeah, it's like the center of the anthology. I thought it was great. It had like kind of Hammer style vibes a little bit, which was good. I like the concept. The vampire concept is a really interesting one. And I don't know. I didn't know that it was supposed to be in Russia until I looked at the Wikipedia entry. But I did get the sense that it's sort of supposed to be this. It's supposed to be exotic compared to like it's definitely not supposed to be taking place in Italy. It's supposed to be someplace outside of Italy.
It felt Eastern European to me, even though I wouldn't have said Russia either. I didn't have that, but
it feels like a Russian border kind of thing. Yeah, it doesn't. Even consider it's a historical piece, like it's some kind of like period in the past, and like it doesn't feel like an Italian sort of thing. I know me and my girlfriend were making fun of how many like ruins and castles there were. They're like, well, that's Italy for you. Every square inch of land has been built on and turned to ruin several times. So you go around that long as a culture, it's bound to happen. So that was a fun observation on her part.
But I thought that made this a really interesting atmospheric kind of setting, because you had these. It looked like the kind of stuff you see in an RPG book, right? Like if you know what I mean?
Oh, like an RPG book. Hey,
well,
wonder which RPG book you might be.
Yeah, I was thinking of that one. Yeah. He's holding up the Ravenloft Realm of Terror, and that's exactly what I had in mind when I saw those.
Don't
those
you
rules.
Guys have a podcast series discussing that we can promote?
You guys keep talking about the Vordelak. I just have to step aside for 1 second, but keep talking.
Okay.
If he comes back with like a cloak and fangs, this is going to be the best like spontaneous cross-pollination ever. Oh man. Okay, but for real though, I can't gush enough about this. I really loved the sets they used. I loved a lot of the fascinating like camera angles and directing choices. But I think what kind of sold it for me was right at the beginning. Our main character, our noble guy, is riding on a horse, and he comes across a corpse that's had its head completely torn off, and like they spare none of it. You get to see this like horrifically mutilated puppet. It looks great. It's all wet and glistening in the neck stump, and I was just like, "Oh, you had my attention. Now you have my interest."
What I liked about this one is, as I realized, it's a very tightly done storyline, because the concept of these vampires is that they only drink, or they prefer the blood of their loved ones and people that they love. And so there's a line midway through the movie, because the protagonist falls in love with one of the women that lives at the homestead, where he says something to her like, "Perhaps when this is over, you will love me too." And that becomes so prophetic by the end of the... So I just thought it was kind of, in a way, it was like a happy ending, right? Because she falls in love with him, right? Like if she's like this, because by the end she becomes a Vordelak, and she drinks his blood, right? So that means she loved him. So
well, what's the point? It's because it's kind of funny. It feeds on it. It's the fact he's willing to die to be with her. It's like basically that's what makes her love him, which allows her to feed on him. It's a very clever little thing there.
So so they lived happily ever after was my my assessment.
They still menace the Russian steppe to this day.
Well, and they're immortal, right? Like, and they're if I'm assuming Vordelaks are immortal. I don't know. Maybe they're not like normal vampires, but presumably
they live a normal human lifespan and then just die peacefully and go to heaven. Are you sure these are monsters?
But they live them and the whole family live together, immortal as Vordelaks for their for eternity.
It did seem like a pretty happy family. So I don't know. There are worse monsters to turn into, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if I had to live with my in-laws for eternity, that would be a special kind of hell. So maybe it was punitive.
Well, Well, but I mean, before they turned into Vortilax, these in-laws seemed pretty reasonable and nice. So, I think.
Sure.
Well, it's their niceness that's their undoing. It's like, they can't kill the father when he comes back, and they can't kill the kid.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just, that's basically what destroys them.
It's the wife. The wife murders the husband because he won't let her open the door for the kid. So she's a little bit questionable.
Yeah, who is so obviously dead. Yeah. Also, I love that they killed a kid. That was great.
That scene is really eerie, like, because the scene where he's banging on the door and he's talking about how cold it is outside, and the way that shot, that was a really well done scene. It's really like eerie, and it does a good job.
I feel like this was in Stephen King's head when he wrote Pet Sematary too.
Oh, yeah.
That was there's a similar vibe of just inevitable horrible mistakes happening in the chain and bringing everything down, and the dead child thing on top of it.
I watched a lot of recent Stephen King movies. I watched Doctor Sleep, and I watched the first half of the It duo, and he loves killing kids. He's made such an art of it now. There's a dead kid in every movie, and you know what? I love it.
But this one, this struck me. This was more like I don't know, but this was like an off-screen death too, right? Like, I don't think we. So,
well, just... the implied monstrousness of it is just so grisly. It was great.
Yeah.
And then he comes back from the dead and he's all pitiful and eerie. I rarely like smile with glee when I'm watching a horror movie or any movie at all, but I was delighted by this. I guess everyone involved in this production is probably dead at this point, but if they're not, they should know how much I love them. You're all brave souls.
But with the kid, it's another thing too. I watching it a second time today before the podcast. It's the fact that he is clearly uncomfortable around his grandfather when he comes back. It's like he knows that this isn't his grandfather and something's wrong, which just makes the whole thing even creepier. It's like the dog and the kid are just like immediately like no, this isn't. Isn't the guy.
They did a good job because the dog is barking when he comes back, so that's meant to get you to think he's a Vortilac. But then the servant sees the severed head in the bag. He's like, "Oh, that's why the dog was barking." It's like, "Oh, now we can all rest easy." And I don't know. I thought that, but I like that the whole premise is if he comes back before midnight, he's fine. If he comes back after midnight, he's a Vortilac, right? That's what he told them. Like, if he comes, after the fifth day, he comes back at the stroke of midnight, and so they don't know. It's the ambiguity of midnight that I really like here. That he comes back at that time, so there's just this uncertain. They don't know if he's a Vortilac
and they
or
don't.
not.
They don't want it to be because, like, the thing with finding the bag in the head. It's like there's this air to it of oh good, we really want to believe that they're just looking for a reason, and they don't seem to entirely even buy it themselves, but they found something to cling to. So.
Well, and they've also got the noble who's there as an outsider who's kind of deriding them for their silly superstition. So I'm sure that was kind of playing in their mind, like, oh God, are we being backwards? Is Grandpa here? Are we going to murder our beloved grandfather?
Yeah, you do have a good point there.
So there's all this wonderful, and it's a wonderful texture, the whole thing, because even as an audience member, obviously I wanted Boris Karloff to be a monster. It's Boris Karloff, goddammit.
Yeah.
But also I love that moment of genuine ambiguity when he comes home and he looks just like this haggard ghoul that's been in the mountains and has been suffering with a stab wound. And you could really buy that, okay, well, maybe he's not a monster. Maybe he just had a really rough 5 days fighting this fucking murderer in the mountains.
And we don't know what his personality was like before he left because we didn't see him. So we don't know if that's normal or not. We don't know because he seems kind of off. He seems like he is probably grumpier than he would normally be. But we don't have any idea if he's a grump or not. Yeah. So that was the other part I liked about it is that you're sort of working with the same information as the main character. Who arrived there after the father had already left. So
so that's really it's well constructed, and it's a wonderful little escalation of terror. The whole family gets ravaged by this anti-empathy illness of turning people into vampires. They fall one by one like dominoes. our protagonist takes his lady and goes to a nearby ruined castle to sleep in the basement of, which predictably ends in disaster.
Yeah.
God, that was great. I also love how touchy he is about it. He's like, soon you'll forget your family and love only me. And it feels, I don't know how much time was supposed to have passed, but it really felt like 3 days. It's
Well,
like, I
that's the
wrote
thing
in,
about the-
your
He
family
fell in
died,
love
this is
pretty
your new
quick with
life.
her. I will say he fell in love pretty darn quick with her.
Well, I was gonna say
okay.
the main character, he just meets this girl. He wants to take her away from his family, and that's his only goal the entire movie.
Yeah.
He's just like not interested in helping anyone. It's just like I'm just gonna try and lure this girl away with me. That's it. That's all he's doing.
He seems like an up and up kind of guy.
So maybe the Vortilacs have a point of view here that we're not seeing, and but but that is interesting. Also, I think he's kind of presumptuous because he's a count, so it's what I mean. It's sort of like
of course.
But yeah, it was kind of a speedy romance. I would say it was probably more lust than love early on, just because
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's
I'm with him on that one. She was a pretty good looking lady.
Oh yeah, I can't argue with that.
Really, all the women in this are kind of gorgeous. So
I was saying, the whole movie has a glamorous kind of vibe, but the telephone is the one that really kind of is to me has the most glamour. But yeah, I think like again, it's got that early '60s, late '50s feel where everybody. Their hair, even if they're in like the 1700s or the 1800s, their hair looks like it's 1950s hair. Do you know what I mean? And they got the makeup on, and but it's like as the 50s are becoming the 60s, so there's just like the style is very of that time. But yeah, so I don't know any additional thoughts about the is it Vortilac or Wardilac? Is the W pronounced as a V or as a W?
I mean, we're talking about what is probably a Russian word getting translated to us through Italian accents. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have any clue.
Okay.
I'm going to go with V, but that's just because I like V's.
It sounds more ominous.
It sounds more.
Yeah, it's got a classic villainy kind of sound. But we call it that one. But yeah, this is a powerfully Ravenlofty kind of segment.
Yeah, it's
I was spellbound. And I think I almost feel like I'm underselling it. Like it's first of all, it contrasts really strongly with the first segment, which is great for getting your attention. And second of all, it's just so grotesque and grim and beautiful at the same time. It really is a fantastic little piece of filmmaking.
And Boris Karloff, man, is just great.
He's like
he is.
He's like an evil Mark Twain in this one. I think he looks like an evil Mark Twain.
Yeah, you mentioned he looked like Mark Twain.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I was watching The Adventures of Mark Twain, like the little claymation movie they made starring Mark Twain and like Mark Twain characters, which is extremely eerie, by the way. And yeah,
the claymation Mark Twain one. Yeah, I know that. Yes.
Claymation's always kind of uncanny, I think. Like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer stuff, all that always looks kind of creepy to me.
Well, they do creepy stuff with it. Like, why is the Island of Toys ruled by a bat-winged lion monster? Like, why? Where is this in Christmas lore? Like, anyway, I'm going astray here. The point being that he does actually look like Mark Twain, and it's unsettling.
Yeah, he's got an odd look to him, but it's an effective one because I feel like it's something about like I don't really feel like I've seen many vampires with that look. Do you know what I mean? Something about his look is a little different than a lot of other vampires. Yeah,
there's something like I think ghoulish was the way I defined it.
Yeah,
ghoulish is a good way
for it.
Because there's something more monstrous and corpse-like about him. And of course, Boris Karloff is used to playing a giant, unnerving corpse. So he brings his A game.
But here he's not giant. Here he almost seems small in this one. I don't know what his height was supposed to be, but they don't try to make him look big.
Well, he's sitting down a lot is the thing, or he's like bound on a horseback. So they don't leverage the height as an element of the terror. Like they did with Frankenstein.
Well, but in Frankenstein, he also had those boots that gave him quite a few inches.
His platforms.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So I don't know. What was that?
What were you saying, Adam? Are you saying something?
No, I wasn't saying anything.
Okay, cool.
And I'm just going to remind people again that this is a late night movie discussion. So,
Yeah,
but
if any of us are hearing voices or imaginary things other people are saying, that's where that's coming from.
So the next one was The Drop of Water, which is kind of cool because it opens up and it's set. I think it looks like it's in like the 20s or the teens or something. Like it's
like further back than that. I think I don't know.
It says, you know what? Well, okay, I just pulled it up. It says the 1910s. So
excuse me.
So you're right. Earlier than the 20s. So, that's the 10s.
But like everything's old timey. Do you know what I mean? It's just got a very old timey.
It's got a music box to entertain her. Yeah, basically.
But yeah, so this one is about. I think she's a nurse, and there's a spiritualist woman who dies during a seance, and she's got to go take care of the body, and the lady's got a really nice looking gem on her finger, so she steals it, and then that leads to her demise because the ghost comes to get her. So it's got kind of a Telltale Heart kind of feel to it, except instead of a beating heart, instead of the beating heart, it's like a drop of water. Like she keeps hearing the droplet of water and seeing the fly. And that really eerie corpse, corpse.
It felt very, very EC horror comics too. I had that real vibe to it because that was already a thing at this time. So it may or may not have been influenced by it, but it felt like a Tales from the Crypt episode, a very particularly good one.
Yeah. What did you guys think of this one? Did you like? I mean, you said it was particularly good. So did you like it or?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was done. It's all very predictable. You know everything that's going to happen, but it's just done so well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joel.
Well, that's a good point. It is predictable. Like, there's no surprise in this. Really, it's a couple of jump scares that are definitely shocking. Mm-hmm. But this is laid out right from the very beginning. You're like, okay, this is a poor lady. She sees a shiny thing. She takes it from a really creepy corpse. She's gonna die. This is so predictable. But you don't care because it's technically predictable to get on a roller coaster, but the ride is amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's supposed to be predictable because you're supposed to know that she's committing this sin when she takes the ring, and that is going to lead to bad things, and And then as soon as the lady's hand drops the water on her, something. It's really the surprise is you don't know how it's going to end badly for you. It's going to end badly, but you don't know how. And so that it's one of those things where it's sort of like the director is artfully saying, yes, I am going to do this. This person is going to die, but when and how?
Yeah, you don't know the specifics. Yeah. The ghost is going to somehow get her, and I have to say too. Just a horror shout out too that I picked up having never seen this before. I'm like, the self-strangulation. I was like, Evil Dead 2. There's the part where he comes out of the mirror and strangles himself, and then that I was just like, that's where that came from. Fantastic.
And also I like how in this one, after she dies, the lady that comes and find her, it's implied that she also took the ring off of her.
Ring.
Yes.
Death ring.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
You opportunistic fool.
And so you're kind of wondering, is there something about this ring where it's just going to keep attracting desperate or greedy people to steal it and lead to...
Yeah, I was getting a little bit of a Twin Peaks vibe too of the ring in Firewalk with Me that also shows up in the shows. I was like, wow, I wonder.
We've got to force Brendan, dude, to watch all of Twin Peaks with us. That's going to be like the November project.
Yeah, because that reference went right over my head.
God. Well, you won't get Firewalk with Me unless you watch the entirety of the first two seasons.
You do need to really appreciate Firewalk with Me. You do need to watch a fair amount of Twin Peaks. You don't need to watch all of it. There's actually a segment you could skip.
Well, there's certain episodes in the second season where you can kind of just not worry about it. Even if you just read a brief synopsis, you've got it.
You got it.
That's it.
Okay.
The first season's unmissable. There's almost no fat on the first.
The first season is very short too. It's not. It's like something like 8 episodes or something. It's not a traditional TV season.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
It's not that intimidating.
I still got to get in another Sopranos viewing before this. I see the Many Saints of Newark, so that's
So
my
you've got your TV slots
I've
kind
got
of
my
full
for a
up.
little while. I don't know. It depends. It depends. I'm hearing different things about the Many Saints of Newark, so that might
ooh.
affect my enthusiasm.
I know
Um,
this month Dune is coming out too, so me and you, Adam, are probably gonna have to watch that and review it or something.
Okay,
It's
I'm
like
definitely on for
I know
Dune.
you're gonna watch it. I don't know if Brendan's gonna watch it. He's
I
not
like Dune.
really very intellectual.
I
Oh,
like
okay.
Dune. I read Dune. I've read Dune twice, my friend.
I've
Twice.
also read Dune twice, my friend. So okay, we're equal.
I mean,
in
I
Dune.
probably now, in fairness, I probably don't remember Dune as well as you do. I
I was
probably am
gonna
not.
say I
Yeah,
haven't read it
yeah.
since in
But
like 30 years or something,
the
so I'm by no means an expert. But
the
I
last
definitely will. I will be watching the movie, no question.
I read it on a plane ride in 2006 is when I last read it. And then I continued with the rest of the series up through like book 4, I think. So I know I've never gotten past book 4. So there's probably a lot of lore that I don't
That's the
know.
one with the big giant worm guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that is.
big giant worm guy.
So
I'm sure I know his name. I just don't care to call it to mind because it is actually pretty late over here too. Okay,
so
but back to the
Oh
Telltale Heart.
yeah,
yeah.
we're talking about a movie. Wow.
Now we're talking about every movie. But yeah, we got to do Dune. I'm super fucking stoked about it. Okay, so I did want to mention just how Edgar Allan Poe this last piece feels like in a really good way because I actually got the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe from a used bookstore a couple of months back. I've been reading it to my kids, and it's fantastic. It's wonderfully gruesome, and I can see why people because I keep running into modern authors or authors from like the turn of the century who like never shut up about Poe. They're like, this guy was genius. And I remember reading Poe when I was a little kid and being like, this is kind of hard to understand. And now I go back and read it and I'm like, oh wow, he is a genius. Holy shit.
His language is so good too. Just reading his stuff aloud, like it just flows.
It's like sweet southern molasses. It's amazing.
Exactly.
He's an incredible author, incredible poet, and he had a sense of the grotesque that he like just drove a nail into its heart, and it has haunted the American subconscious ever since then, probably the world's subconscious. But man, like this Italian horror short really captures that vibe extremely well. It's gruesome in a visual way, like the rictus mask of the
I love it.
Yeah, it's so gross. The loud buzzing of the fly that the ring turns into whenever they see it. Like there's so many things that just grab you about this part. It's such an experience. Ugh.
Yeah, the main character's performance too. I mean, she just her like this her struggle with whether to take the ring or not, and just her reactions to everything. I mean, she sells. She's because I mean most of the movie is just her. It's just you're watching her alone pretty much through most of it, and she just
she had a lot of
there's only one other character, right? There's one other character,
there's technically 4, I guess, because there's the maid, there's the landlady, and there's the cop, and who shows up.
That's true. But I mean, in terms of
the character is the corpse.
Yeah.
But in terms of her interactions, because the cop and the landlady show up after she's dead, so
I know.
Yeah, that's the next segment getting set up.
So, but yeah, I thought this one was good. I like this one. I definitely like the middle one better, I would say, and maybe even the first
the best one. There's no question it's the best. But this was the most fun, I think. Like the one that's just. And it's short too. It's just the perfect amount of time. And that's going. It's like horror anthologies in general. I mean, horror movies are one of those formats where it's really easy to stretch it out and make it too long. So, I really love the horror anthology format.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good ending. It was a good end. It was a nice sort of entrance, exit out of the anthology. And also I liked how this one captured the feel of the house she lived in. Something about that felt very. It felt like time travel to me. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like like the middle segment was very atmospheric, but I didn't feel like I was being actually transported to the past. Do you know what I mean? I felt like I was being transported to
it felt like a Hammer. It was a Hammer movie set.
But this felt like a real apartment that somebody lived in like the 1910s. Do you know what I mean? It had that kind of
the mansion she goes to as well. There's something again uncanny about the place. It's like it's too tall.
Yeah,
and there's just
the
something.
Colors are strange too.
Colors are
like
strange.
Green and
the whole thing is this. It's nightmarish, not in the sense of being terrifying, but in the sense of the surreal. It feels like being in a weird dream, you know?
Oh, this also had the thing of having creepy dolls lying around the room too, scattered around. I was like, I wonder when that trope started. How early in the having antique dolls kind of around as a creepy thing, but I don't know if this started it.
Dolls are eerie, so.
Well, I know. I'm just thinking at the movie history of it, though. I'm trying to. It'd be an interesting thing to trace.
I also thought that that it was interesting that you kind of start the anthology in like a real kind of modern house. It seems. I don't know if that was actually supposed to be present day or a little before, but it felt very current. And then you have this. Then the next thing is like a Hammer set, like you're saying. That's very sort of atmospheric and kind of dreamlike, and then you exit in this setting that's kind of a mix of the both of them. It's got the surreal elements that you're talking about, but it also feels like a real apartment in a real house. So it's it doesn't feel like a set, but they kind of layer on a lot of these surreal elements to it. So
and the exterior shot was very very surreal too, with the you see the green neon sign. She looks out the window at the beginning, but the apartment itself felt very lived in.
I thought that was a lighthouse that was outside.
Oh, I saw it as like a kind of a weirdly shaped neon sign, but I don't know.
I'm not sure what that was supposed to be. It was great effect though. I just love that it would it wasn't like a beam that was constantly in the window. It would fade in and out. There was something about that felt so much like a heartbeat. Like it was so weirdly organic. It was cool.
Yeah, no, the lighting is beautiful in this movie.
And then of course, the movie ends and we get the Boris Karloff send off. And so
which is fun. They just kind of they literally pull the camera back and there's a bunch of guys running past the lens, like holding up trees. It looks like he's running through the forest. And I laughed my ass off at that. There's just something so charming about the whole thing because Boris is still on top of the horse and he's like having a gay old time.
He seemed to really enjoy himself on this movie. I don't know if he did. Did he? Is that like a
no? I'm saying he did seem to enjoy himself.
Yeah, either
with your statement.
He either genuinely enjoyed it or he's a way better actor than I gave him credit for.
Yeah, I thought that he had a very infectious enthusiasm at every point in the movie, whether he was the opening when he narrates, or the playing the Wardalak, or the ending where he's just kind of he almost seems a little drunk in that scene, like he's just kind of buoyant. He's just but it was a good way to end the movie. I liked it. So I don't know, any additional thoughts on this one? Any I guess do we need to rate this movie, or are we going to do our traditional rating?
We should do the final thoughts about it. Yeah, just kind of wrap it up. I honestly don't feel like we're going to have a ton to say about it. But like if I was going to give my final thoughts on this, I would give it a strong recommendation. I think maybe people hear the name Boris Karloff and that doesn't have quite the cultural catch it did back when this movie came out. And you might be like, oh, it's the Frankenstein guy, I guess. But it's worthwhile to see the man like as sort of the phenomenon that he was, because Frankenstein was gigantic back in the day. And Boris Karloff's name was on a lot of posters. And so there's some element of this that's a celebration of his celebrity. And it's fun to kind of go back to that and see like, oh, there's a reason this guy was famous. Like he has a big range. All the things you mentioned, like he sells all of those kinds of enthusiasm and showmanship in very distinct ways that are believable and like I said, infectious the whole time.
He plays three different characters, kind of like he plays, because even though he's still dressed as the Wardalak, he's kind of playing a different person in that scene. And the opening, I kind of interpret that as that's Boris Karloff, the first guy we see. To be, but he's still there's a little something extra in there. He's got a little energy in his step or something that seems like it's a character.
A little Rod Serling vibe to it.
Well, he does this thing where he points at the audience, but he also, as he's pointing, he kind of gets into a weird stance. Do you know what I mean? It's like a James Bond like, you know, when James Bond shoots the gun at
and he's
it's
all,
like that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought that was really charming. I don't know why, but I really like the second time I watched it, I was looking forward to that step. I was like, oh, he's got to do the move now, you know? So
yeah, he's like a cool uncle. I love Boris Karloff. But even if you don't enjoy it just for that reason, each of these segments really, they all stand on their own wonderfully. The whole movie has a great texture. There's some really brilliant directing in this, some great use of lighting and stagecraft. There's some fantastic performances, a great use of the score. Like, this movie is kind of a must see. Because I mean, we've watched some on Horror Express. We've seen a few that were like, wow, this is a high recommend.
yeah.
And a lot of classics where it's kind of like you feel like you're almost impoverished if you haven't watched them.
Yeah.
I sort of feel that way about this one. I'm not even slightly surprised that bands like Black Sabbath took this and they were like, we're naming the band after this. Yeah, no, I get it, man. It's that good. It's quite something. Several times I feel like I've undersold this movie during this because it's late night. We're all kind of low energy. But I was actually thrilled with how much I enjoyed this movie, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and it being Halloween month and everything, this is a perfect Halloween movie. I mean, if you're having a Halloween party and you put this on, it's like, yeah, that's
that's the thing for me. This is the perfect Halloween film, I think. This is like
really good.
It's 100%. It's got exactly the tone because it's like I said, there's that edge of humor, but it's also genuinely scary, and it's but it's classic enough that it's not like you could put this on for a broad range of people at a party and it's not going to create problems like if you put on I don't know, The Ring or something, or you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Hostel.
or or Hostel.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that's
or even some like Halloween almost, because I feel like this is a movie you can kind of, the structure of it is that you can take bites of it. You don't have to sit there and watch the whole thing. And a movie like Halloween, which is another one that you can kind of just put on for a broad range, because there's not a lot of blood in Halloween. It's just actually just really solid. But with Halloween, it rewards your attention. Like if you're paying full attention to Halloween.
If you have it playing in the background, most of it is teenagers going around, riding around the car and stuff. It's not going to be creating any mood for you unless you're into the story.
Yeah, this movie is almost like a party. You know, it's vibrant and it's loud when it needs to be loud, and it's quiet when it needs to get quiet, and there's a lot of variety. And this is a great movie to just kind of put on that people will slowly pay more and more attention to.
Yeah.
And I definitely think if you're gonna pick, you know, movies for Halloween, definitely this and the movie Halloween both belong in the month of Halloween. You know, it's a good Halloween film.
It is. I'm really glad we watched this in Halloween. It got me in such a wonderful spooky mood. I'm really, really happy with this. I feel like I've uncovered a new classic.
And it has.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised that I've never seen it. I'm like, this is an essential. This is a true classic that if you are highly interested in horror, you do need to watch this. I feel richer in my horror knowledge just with this one movie.
Yeah, I think I give it a high recommend as well. So I mean and I think Joel, you said most of the relevant stuff. I think the only thing I would add, which somebody already probably stated, is that it has these cool moments where like the filmmaking craft is very evident. Do you know what I mean? Where you know some directors it's like, ooh, he's doing the camera thing now, or he's doing, you know, he's like there are a few moments that really get your attention. Do you know what I mean? And I like that. I don't like to be overwhelmed with camera tricks, but I like it when once in a while a director is like, no, now we're going to like wow you.
It's always an effect. It's like whenever he does something, it hits you with something. It's a creepy moment or something. Like one moment I'll call out. I love at the in the closing seconds of the Verdilac, where there's that shot of them looking through the window, you know, that is beautiful. It is such a beautifully composed shot that just has this powerful effect.
And it's beautiful, and it's so haunting because you're kind of separated from them, you know, because they're framed in that window frame. And there's something so doomed about the looks on their faces where they're technically together and they're technically a family, but like the soul has just been drained out of them in this hideous way. And it's such a haunting visual. It's great.
Yeah, just being tightly framed in that window frame just makes them all look trapped. And
Yeah. Yeah,
but yeah, as you were saying, Brandon, before I called that out.
But yeah, no, I think that's something that definitely struck me with this movie is that kind of those kind of techniques. And I don't know, and I like when they're used sparingly like that. They're sort of they're so that you notice them, but that they stand out.
It's not just done for flashiness sake.
Yeah, it's like some movies do that sort of thing, and it's almost like you break your neck watching the movie because it's just like just like this the style is overwhelming me. But this is more like you have these, we'll call them Kubrick moments. Do you know what I mean? Where it's just Kubrick like moments. just where it's like everything is very well framed, and the director is good at saying, no, you need to look at this right now. I want your attention, and it kind of gets it. And there's some subtle camera thing going on. I don't know. I don't have the language to describe it, but there's something that the camera is doing that is enabling, all of this to happen. So I don't know. Any other thoughts before we head out on this one?
It's definitely Borderlack.
Okay, fair enough.
That's it. Go watch this movie. Go watch Black Sabbath. It's worth your time. It's one of the great Halloween movies. I with no hesitation, a guy who has watched Halloween movies his whole life. This is one of the greats.
Yeah, and as long as you don't mind ads, you can even watch it for free right now. So.
Yeah. It's again, we saw it on Kino Cult, which I thought was great. I was really glad that you found that resources. Yeah,
it's
I'm trying to watch more stuff on that.
I know I have movies that have Kino on the DVD box.
Yeah, it's a really good brand.
Yeah.
So,
they're good folks, and this is one of the ones I think we actually chose this specifically because our audience could grab it, even if they had no money for Amazon. They could just go on to Kino and just watch it along with us. Go watch it, folks. It's great.
That's something we should have mentioned at the start. Is that one of the things we want to do this month?
That's what's for the description.
Yeah. We're trying to pick movies that people can watch for free, and so this is one of them. And there are commercials, but there's I think they're like a minute long at most.
They weren't overly intrusive. I didn't think. Some streaming services you get there and they just milk you, but this was okay.
This was all right. So next one, are we doing Nosferatu next? I was really looking forward to that one.
I'm fine doing Nosferatu next.
I'm such a snob for silent movies, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I really got into Metropolis by Fritz Lang a while back, and it just kicked off this thing about silent movies to me for a while. So I've like, hand to God, I've only seen the first half of this movie before, so I'm really looking forward to watching the whole thing. I might show it to my kids if I don't think it's too horrific. So I don't know how entertaining it's going to be for them, but it'll enrich them.
I saw it when I was a kid. And I do know it scared me, but I did enjoy it. So, double-edged sword, I suppose.
All right, we're gonna get.
I think Nosferatu is probably like the scariest movie ever made. That I don't, I know we're not talking about it till next time, but I think it's still, even though it's a silent movie and it was made so long ago, it's got to be one of the scariest movies, if not the scariest. So anyways, we'll head out. Again, Nosferatu is also something you'll be able to watch for free, like everywhere, because I think the copyright is no longer.
That's around. Like 100-year-old movie. Yeah. Like, pretty sure that one expired.
And that's one that almost didn't survive because of copyright. They tried to destroy that movie, and it survived. So.
It came back from the dead.
Well, it got smuggled. It got smuggled to America, is what happened.
Oh
my God! It's just like in the movie. We're doomed. We've exhumed a terrifying corpse from a bygone age.
So we'll be back, and until next time, we will talk to you later.